for is 100% synthesizer, and it's just me, you know. It's just me playing. I mean, the thing that the synthesizers allow me to do is they allow me to be very specific about each note. It's not like, you know, when you write on paper, all you're doing is you're telling them the pitch and the duration, but it doesn't really tell you per note, you know, what the emotion is of the thing. You know, but in a computer, I can go in and it really
ironically,
ironically,
finding
I can
emotion by the computer.
Yes, but I can be much more specific. I can maintain specificity in the point of view all the way through. And then what's great is to take that and play to a great musician and say, okay, you know what I wanted. Now give me more of that. Now bring your art to it. Bring yourself to this.
And which part of it do you enjoy the most? Is there a part that you enjoy the most?
Writing. You know, that part after the panic is over and it starts flowing. Yeah, you know, the ideas are coming. I suddenly know what the thing is, and I suppose the creative process. You know, and yes, I like working with musicians. You know, when they do their thing. You know, and when it really happens. At the same time, I dread all those. You know, the rehearsals when it's, you know, when you've written the piece and you put it in front of musicians for the first time, and it sounds really good, it sounds proficient. I mean, anybody can read anything in this town or in London where we did homes. But it's not a piece of music yet. You know, it pretends to be a piece of music, you know, and then suddenly it all comes together, like magic. And you don't quite know why it happens and how it happens. Well, actually, part of it is just rehearse, you know. And yeah, you know, that's pretty good.
But do you get surprised when that is happening? I mean, are there things the musicians bring to it that you don't expect?
Yeah, sometimes, rarely. Actually, the strange thing is because, you know, I don't write at the computer, I don't write at the keyboard, I write in my head, right? And usually the stuff sounds a lot better in my head than it can ever sound. So it's like a law of diminishing returns. But every once in a while you come across a moment with the musicians where they surpass all expectations. I just had it. I mean, after I went to the Sherlock premiere in London, and I was dead tired, and I've been working on this thing for 7 months without a break. I really should be taking a break. And as I'm walking into the after party, Chris Nolan is there, and as I see him, I'm getting an idea for his movie. And even as the idea is coming, I'm going, Hans, stop. You know, you got to take a break. You know, what happened, I spent all night talking to Chris about this idea, and two days later we were at Air Studios, George Martin's studio, with a bunch of musicians, because I had an idea in my head, and maybe because there was just such a short period of time between the idea and actually having the musicians there. And when they started playing, it was like, oh wow, this is actually much better than it was in my head. And it was great, you know. And you know, and at least we were off. You know, we were off to the races. You know, even if this thing never ends up in the movie, we had staked our claim here. You know, okay, we're working.
So when you have an idea, do you lose? I mean, I know as a writer, you'll sometimes have an idea while you're sleepy or whatever, and it's gone the next morning. Do they lock in for you, or do you write them down? Do you hum them into a tape recorder?
No, yeah, I got this perverse idea that if I can't remember it by the time I get to the studio, it can't have been any good anyway.
So no regrets.
No, and you know, and seriously, I mean, like the Holmes tune, you know, it's so set in what it is. You know, it's really hard to forget. You know, and that's part of the job. You're supposed to write something memorable, you know, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a tune per se, but, you know, Dark Knight, I promise you hear the first second, you know what it is, you know, and you know, I try in all these scores that within the first second or two, it's something evocative, and it's something. You know, it has the DNA of the whole thing in it. And it can only be off that piece.
So unlike some composers, there is not a specific Hans Zimmer DNA that you hear the first 12 notes and you go, okay, that's going to be a John Williams score. You know, it's you seem to like to go all over the place.
Well, I mean, Thelma and Louise and Gladiator and Black Hawk Down and Hannibal and Matchstick Men and Black Rain are all Ridley Scott movies, but I do think they sound very different from each other. You know, and what I love is working with filmmakers who go, okay, we're gonna with Red, you know, we want to do a Gladiator movie. I mean, actually, my first reaction was I was laughing, you know, because all I could do is see men in skirts. And he's saying, no, it's not going to be like that, and they really let me do my thing, you know. You know, what do you think of blah 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 blah? Or we music is really you can't really talk about music per se, you know. And whatever it is, you know, what I write, you know, when I wrote the Sherlock tune, and I played it to Guy, and there's there's very little conversation that goes on. It either resonates, it either lands, or it doesn't. And I think you have to change the tape.
No, we're good. He just letting me know we have 5 minutes left.
Okay.
So are you curious about other forms? Is it just whatever fits the work that you're going to? I mean, something like Lion King obviously doesn't necessarily match Black Hawk Down.
No, Lion King was the weirdest experience I ever had. I mean, really, quite honestly. Lion King is a kids movie. I took it on because my daughter was 6 or so at the time. And I wanted to show off. I wanted to take my kid to a premiere because I was doing all these grown-up movies, you know. And I was, you know, it's Elton John and it's pop songs, and that's where we were starting. And the African thing I knew how to do, and I'm working on this movie, and it's about a son and the death of his father. And my dad died when I was 6 years old, and I never sort of, you know, dealt with it in that sort of sense, and suddenly I find I had to go and write about something which to me was actually really profound. So Lion King isn't a kid's score, and I really went through it on that one in a weird way, and I think it's a really honest score, in you know, I mean, quite raw in a way. And you know, I was working with an African friend of mine. It was just around the time of you know, the election where, you know, the ANC finally came to power, and you know, the apartheid went. So some of our lyrics are maybe a little more political than you would ever know, unless you spoke Zulu.
So somebody should go through with a Zulu dictionary and hear the whole thing?
Maybe. Maybe not.
So what is your relationship with the stuff after it's done? I mean, do you listen to audiences reacting to it? Do you get a feel for that? And
oh, totally. I mean, you know, Sherlock Holmes, because it's a dangerous score. I mean, you know, it's Sherlock Holmes. It's a big Christmas movie, etc. And I'm dragging in out of tune pianos and banjos. We previewed it for an audience. We previewed the whole score for an audience, and that moment, you know, when they asked the focus group, well, you know, do you like, what do you think of the music? Excellent, poor, blah, 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 blah. You know, that moment when the hands go up, I mean, that was Dante's Inferno. I mean, that moment was so long between the question and the hands going up.
Can you feel it in the room when you're watching it?
Totally. I mean, very much on, you know, there were a couple of points in that score that were hotly debated amongst the executives and the creative team, let's say. You know, and I remember on the way to the preview, still getting berated about this one bit that was, you know, you're ruining the movie, and we're getting to that bit, and I had no idea who she was sitting next to me. We get to that bit, and she turns around to me and she goes, "That's brilliant." I'm going, tell him. You know, you're supposed to be polarizing. You're supposed to go and do something that's provocative. You know, I mean, I think that's part of the job. You're supposed to be a little dangerous. You know, and I'm all cocky and I'm all dangerous. You know, and then we actually get to the preview, and all I want to do is crawl under my seat, because all I can think of is how wrong it can go. And, you know, look, I've never really been fired of a movie, but I have